Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 516, and today we will be discussing the art within your art and how does that relate to whether or not Marnies is or can be a standalone system. So we'll be discussing that. If you're watching, smash the like button. If you have questions, put them on the right hand side in the comment section. I will get them. However, if they are not within the context that we're discussing, not to interrupt the flow, I will jot them down and absolutely get to them. So without further ado, here are our guests. We have Mike and Tim coming up. Hey guys.
Hello.
How you doing?
All right. So I'm looking forward to this. Should be interesting. See what you guys' lenses on this and see what questions we got in and all that. But just for if you guys don't know, I had Mike on. It wasn't that long ago, actually. And you are, I guess, what they would construe the old guard, so to speak. I mean, you were around like a while. I mean, like, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me correct, kind of was it early 80s or
Late 70s, around
late
78.
70s?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, 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 wow.
When Remy had been here not so long.
Yeah. And just to correct, or people I have forgotten, Dr. Tim, your tenure started.
I started in 1985.
All right, so 85. Okay, late 70s, 85. So, really, I mean, both early. I mean, as far as that is concerned, and well, in my opinion, So, Mike, so you are within the art standalone program. What's your lens on that?
Well, it's got to be taken in context and in the context of the times. And in the late 70s, early 80s, it was a very different world. There was no FMA, there was no such thing. Our niece had been heard of or rarely heard of. Remy came over here and it was pretty much new to everybody. Nobody had ever seen these flying sticks or the Filipino guy running around, doing amazing stuff. So he was on a campaign to make the art known. He was a cultural ambassador. Literally, he had been sent to Japan previously by the government as a cultural ambassador. But he was also here because of politics and business. Um, he had been in the Philippines. He was a consultant and on the movie called The Pacific Connection, and one of the stars of the movie was Dean Stockwell, who was a famous American actor. And Dean helped bring Remy over in the mid 70s. And he stayed with Dean for a while in Topanga Canyon, which back in those days was smoky haze, shall we say, of people spending a lot of time smoking things. So basically, he got tired of that and hit the road. But he was really very much there to propagate the art. And since no one had ever seen it before, Remy was a very smart businessman, very wise. And he saw the opportunity. He saw the response that people had to when they saw the sticks, because prior to that, we had a thriving tournament scene. We had there you go. There's their book.
It was another title for it was Stick Fighter.
Yeah.
There's
There you go.
the video.
Yeah. There you go.
Also on YouTube for those who are looking for it.
Yeah, I've got to watch that. I haven't seen it for a long time. But he saw people's reaction when they saw the stick. He saw people light up and go, "Oh wow!" Because during this time, tournaments were really, we had a wave. It was the golden age of tournaments and national competitions. We had world champions in every corner of every state, it seemed like, at the time, before Karate Illustrated came in and codified the requirements for tournaments to be rated and sanctioned. And so basically, Renato Barden, actually the editor, deserves the credit, unsung hero, for taking the wild, wild west of tournaments and coordinating that into something codified where national champion really meant national champion or regional meant regional. Well, Ramey walked into this And people were used to seeing kumite. They were used to seeing kata. They were not used to seeing sticks. Maybe a bow, maybe a kung fu swords, but the rattans were brand new. So he walked in, he looked at this thing, and went, "I've got a lot of people here that love this." So he says, I can reach out to these people. I can teach them. And again, the context was we'd set up seminars. Whether it was my dojo in Hollywood, that was a captive audience, and we'd reach out to LA area, Southern California. But we'd travel other parts of the state and country, and we would walk in, and Ramey was able to walk into any dojo of any style, and within seconds see what they emphasized and what he could give them that they didn't have. Because you might walk into a traditional taekwondo school, and yeah, I mean, we don't need to talk to them about kicking. That's fine, they've got that. But talk about knives. My first black belt was in taekwondo. I was woefully lacking in anything to do with weapons before I met Remy, and I knew it. I had studied the art for the art, and it was great. I could kick and punch, and with the best of them. But we really, really didn't have that orientation. So he was able to spot on catch that. And if it was a situation where they didn't know how to defend against a weapon, and that's where the spark was, he would jump into that. Now, he had a basic curriculum, so to speak. There were modules, I call them Remy modules, where he would basically teach certain concepts. And he wound up teaching all those concepts eventually in whatever order, depending on how many times he went back for seminars and follow-ups. But that's really kind of what it was. We were trying to make it seen and understood and let people understand that Filipino martial arts, well, Arnis, specifically modern Arnis, existed. And so we stood on the shoulders of all the people that are out there running the dojos every day. And, that's a lot of work. And Remy was not a bookkeeper. And basically he walked in and he would wow the audience and get everybody enthused about it, get everybody happy, excited. They learned something. They've got something to take home and practice. And then he'd move on. So he didn't have to teach somebody how to stand or how to punch or how to do basic stuff that's kind of common to most any martial art. That commonality, he didn't have to spend his time doing that. He spent his time on what was unique to Arnis. And we were doing a lot of promotions, a lot of magazine articles. I did a couple dozen black belt Karate Illustrated, Fighting Stars, all Kung Fu, Inside Kung Fu. We did as many articles as we could to get it in front. And we took Remy to Instructor of the Year, national, within a year or two. He was Black Belt Instructor of the Year. He was part of the Black Belt calendar. We were getting really good promotion, really good exposure. And so that was the intention. Now, the particular article that we want to talk about.
That's exactly what we need to talk about.
Yeah. The particular article, which, is this issue, Black Belt Magazine.
What year was that again?
That was
Was it
August 82.
82. That's
August 82. Now this came right on the heels. Remy was actually had lived with me for the year before that. Remy never had a dojo when I knew him. He always traveled and did seminars. He decided in 81 to put down some roots, and he stayed with me in LA. I had a dojo in Hollywood. He went there. We had a separate floor. We set up for Arnis. He taught classes regularly. And we were hoping he was putting down roots. And that's even alluded to in this article. That's why I mention it. But the seminar circuit called, the money called, and basically he wound up moving on and continuing to travel. There was some talk where he was going to put down roots in Portland, where a friend of ours, Fred King, was. But Remy was kind of going for where he could do the best business and also the best exposure. So we had this article came out. Now, you have to understand, again, in context of the times, we had done several articles in Black Belt Magazine. We did the issue that I was on the cover with Bruce Juchnick and Ramey, and that was the yellow cover, and that was 81. And then we had regular articles coming up through the course of as often as we could think of it, because Black Belt and Karate Illustrated, which were sister publications, needed good content. They wanted stuff that people were excited about and talking about. People were talking about our modern arnis, and they helped to build upon that. So, having said that, we were looking for topics and articles. And one of the thing I was talking with the editor, and basically I had the same conversation with him. Ramey has this ability to walk in and show people things that connect to their art, and he had the ability to walk in and show somebody something that would connect with what they knew. And in his way, he would always say, and he said, "You already know this. You already know it." That was a common phrase with Ramey. You already know it. You just don't know you know it. And so he would walk in, and the concept of the article, I said to the editor, let's play on that. And let's see if we can look at different arts and different styles and show people how what they are doing is similar and incorporated in modern arnis already. So vice versa, you already know some of modern arnis, you just don't know you know it.
Right.
So he would put a stick in their hand and show them how they knew how this block that they were doing this way turns out it was a modern arnis block. They're doing whatever movement they're doing. He showed the related movement in modern arnis. So he just said, let's write an article about that. Great. We need a tagline. We need a title. Well, it's arnis. And that's when I said, well, how about, the art within your art?
So you,
yeah.
Yes, he was the one.
I'm the one.
And I'm just kidding. I think it was great. I think.
I don't know. Hey, I'm proud of it. It's a great tagline.
Exactly, 100%. As well as you should be.
This is the spread inside spread. It's backwards because of my camera, but that's me. That's me when I had hair.
Okay.
And so through the course of this article, I was getting beat up by Ramey and everybody else. But that was it. We wanted to communicate to people. That was the hook. The hook was, this is something that is not totally alien. You don't have to learn a completely different language. You already know some of the basics. You already know some of the language. Here's how it works with the stick, and so on and so forth. So the course of the article, we went through, and the editor was enamored of what we call the flow. Back in the day, I don't know if you still teach the flow as the flow, Tim, but the flow was a specific motion that we did with the hands.
Like guntings, yeah.
Guntings, yeah. It was called diplo.
Diplo. Cool.
Diplo. It was diplo. And my wife will slap me right now, but bad accent. But it was the beginning of the article talks about the flow and what a core concept that is. But then the editor kind of took it in another direction and compared Ramey's teaching style, which was rather casual and loose, and tied that in with the flow as being, the flow is a technique, but the flow is also understanding movement and how things go. So that it's not like you have to do a hard karate front stance on this particular drill. You do the stance that makes it work. Mm. And so you naturally work on this stuff. Now, Ramey never had to teach people a front stance ever, because basically they already trained stances or other stuff at their school, whether they were white belt or not. It didn't matter. So he left that portion of it to the school owners, because again, at this period in time, at this moment in time, we were piggybacking off of existing schools. We didn't walk in with a school and said, this is the curriculum, you have to do this to be our style. Right. No, he was open to everybody. And then later in the article, we showed some comparisons, some 2x2s, a comparison of attacking with a stick and doing a throw, and then the arnis version of that, and an empty hand version of that. Because you always had the multi-panel photograph comic book pictures in the how-to articles. So basically, that was the intention of the article. It was to get people's attention and to say, and also he taught the articles mentioned at the end about Remy had put down some roots in L.A. Then he was thinking about putting roots down in Portland. In the meantime, contact him here for seminars and gave the Northwest address for people to contact. So it's a marketing tool. But there's a very definitive answer, and I'll save that for a little bit later. But there's a very definitive answer to your question, Tim. But that was the context of the time.
There we go.
So putting that in perspective, in later years, obviously people took the phrase and ran with it because it's catchy.
No, it's definitely
It's very
catchy. And I think it was brilliant on your part. The thing is, people ask me why I cover all this a lot. And I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not a Marnie's practitioner. However, though, what really intrigued me, and I've mentioned this on previous shows, is that how this man came over, got in these schools, spread it, lack of a better cliche, like wildflower, without having a place, a permanent home, a permanent dojo. And then during the decades would change, whether it was Tappy Tappy or Sing a Sinawali, what have you. You guys obviously know this better than me. But I just find I find it fascinating, this evolution that he did, and much to his genius, like came over here and piggybacked on the schools that you mentioned that you already know this, but had the wherewithal to do that. Like when I look at the time frame you're mentioning, like I don't even know if Dan Asano at that time was doing a lot of public seminars. I know around that time is when he started going out there, but maybe
When did Bruce
perhaps
Lee
not
die?
the magnitude to
When did Bruce die?
74.
So that's when Remy splashed down here. So I mean, I would say that Remy was, and he had already been on 2 world tours, promoted by the U.S. or by the Philippine government. So I would say that Remy was doing this stuff long before, Guru Dan. Not to make a
Oh
comparison.
no, absolutely not, absolutely not. Right? Yeah. It's
A
just
little additional piece of information there. Dan had a dojo concurrently when I had my dojo in Hollywood, and he had his dojo. I don't remember if it was Culver City or where it was, but it was in the neighborhood, but not the immediate neighborhood.
Culver City rings a bell.
It was L.A. Okay, so he was promoting Jeet Kune Do at the time, and when Remy was with me at my dojo, Remy basically instructed me to have no contact with Dan or his school or his people. It was the Philip, as broad as Remy was and accepting of all the arts and all the martial arts are good and so on and so forth. That's all fine, but from one Filipino to another Filipino, cooperation is not always so great. And so basically, during that period of time, he really didn't want to commingle.
So it was nothing personal against Dan. It was just
absolutely not. And Dan's a wonderful guy. No,
so it was not like Remy had this innate.
No. It was, and later I also trained a little with Sam Tendencia later, who was also one of the instructors for Dan's instructors, and it was the same story. The Filipino culture did not foster a lot of cooperation amongst the different schools. They all saw each other as competition. Now they were very polite to each other. It wasn't ugly or anything. It just there's an underlying sense of more what are they don't want other people drinking from their well necessarily.
No, especially you're coming over and you're trying to get your name out, financial. I understand it, but to the detriment where we look at today, it's still kind of
very different perspective today.
And that was definitely a different era because Professor was a lot different later in life too.
Sure.
Remember, he fled as a political refugee. He was also concerned with people. I remember Bruce Jutnick told a story when he first met Remy. All the Filipinos thought he was in bed with Castro. I mean, not Castro.
Marcos.
And So there was a lot of animosity towards Remy when he actually fled that regime.
Right.
So there was a lot of things. Remy was very guarded when it came to certain things, and I think that's also a reason why it took him so long to go back to the Philippines. But later in life, my era, like 85 on, Filipinos would visit. He would give people the floor to go out and do demonstrations and share their art. I mean, he did that with Bong Hornelas. We were up in Toronto. He had an Abanico Lumpita gentleman pop up. He did a demonstration. So there was a lot of times that Professor did that. But once again, it's the evolution of the man.
It's a moment of time. It's an evolution of the man. It's also an evolution of the times. Realize we had done all this work with the magazines and promotion and
He already had his name out
he was
there.
Instructor of the Year twice. He was in the calendar. It wasn't like somebody was going to take that away from him anymore. But at the beginning, anybody could have come in and said, "Oh, I'm the grandmaster of blah 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 from this Arnis, from this island," and Remy would have had to deal with that. So once he was more secure in the position, once modern Arnis was more understood and known, and he'd done that hard part, he was able to be far more gracious, I'm sure, with people.
Yeah, and there was an article in Inside Kung Fu, a two-parter, that actually talks about where Inosanto attended a seminar of Remy, and he went over to a barbecue at Inosanto's place, and he was encouraging him to look at his Filipino roots. So once again, as time went on, things changed.
As time went on. Earlier, it was radical because one of my seminars I had, Eric Lee was there, but also Graciela Casillas came, and Graciela was kind of there on the QT. So it was a different time.
A different time, yeah. Before, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my first Inosanto seminar, I showed up with one of my black belts, and we were in plain, everything black tees, black key pants. Didn't say a word. Got to meet Guru Dan, very cool. But I didn't advertise the fact that I was a modern Arnis practitioner. Right. The cool thing is, at the end of the seminar, everyone was like, "Hey, how long have you been an instructor with Guru Dan?" This is my first seminar. I'm like, really? What do you do? Modern Arnis. Oh, okay. And I'd recognized a few people, so by the end of the seminar, people knew who I was. But
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a small world, and the cooperation was overdue. But again, it was only touchy at the beginning when he was forging new ground and moving into new territory. And then once Remy started opening the doors, I don't want to exaggerate, but there's over 7,400 islands in the Philippines. There's at least that many different family styles. And so basically every Filipino, once Remy cracked the door open, it seems like there was a flood of, he was a fisherman, he was a farmer, he was in the war, he was whatever, but a lot of other people started suddenly, teaching Arnis.
Suddenly.
Suddenly, yeah. It was really strange,
Well, I'm akin to dealing with controversy, so I will say it. The best thing that happened for Filipino martial arts was that Remy proved that you could do this as a living. The worst thing for Filipino martial arts is that Remy proved that you could do this for a living, and a lot of people
make money. That you can make money.
A lot of people had no skill, and if you go to the Philippines and you're not careful, there's a lot of people over there teaching that should never teach, and are taking advantage of tourists that don't know any better.
And thank you for sharing that, because my wife is Filipino, so I have a lot of family, and it's finances are very important. Prestige is important. Money's more important. And
providing for a family is very important over there.
There you go. And basically being able to looking at this and seeing, well, Remy did it. I can do that. I used to play with the sticks when I was a kid. Yeah. So I'm a legitimate, Arnis daughter, and basically, I'm from such and such an island and such and such
my family style. And
yeah. And I can still even see it sometimes. It's like Remy is very diplomatic, especially at the beginning. Some people that had larger schools and larger egos were also rewarded with certificates. I remember Remy telling me the one story about somebody or other, I don't remember, in California at the time, who basically was doing a lot of seminars. Remy said he's not so good, but he does a lot of seminars. So he made him the commissioner of something or other for Central California. A totally, made up on the spot name, but he that's what needed to happen for that person to be on board and put weight behind it. So
Well,
he
it's better than throwing rank that meant nothing.
exactly, and there's a lot of that, as we know, that goes around. So
It's still going on today. I mean, like if there's, I wouldn't dare say quid pro quo, but if there's something where you give this guy rank, the rest of the community sees that. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely some residual, obviously that can come from that, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
So
back to the. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say he was very astute. He understood business. He understood how to. He was very diplomatic. He was good with people. He was very charismatic, and he knew how to not make enemies. And he was very good at that. So those were the things that came together in those early years, and then basically we did the first in '83. I did the first summer training camp for 3 weeks, and that launched a whole nother income stream for him. I understand how it evolved, especially after you hooked up with Wally J and Dillman, and basically we're doing the big three thing. And you could see, the changes. To me, my training and my art that I grew up with, kind of, he evolved. Well, just like he tossed the sticks around and got people excited, he saw how people reacted when Wally did what Wally did, and Ramey's already able to do that. He incorporated it as they both would share. Yeah, he stole small circle stuff. Of course he did. He was a martial artist first, and so he incorporated. But he was also a smart businessman. And he saw that got people excited. It's
Right.
fine.
Well, and Wally would say, "I stole Remy's art too," because
Yeah. Oh, it was a mutual. It was a mutual.
when the three of them did their seminars together, they trained. I've seen Wally on the floor with Remy, and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
So there was no question that there was training going back and forth and trading material.
Yeah. Well, there was what Remy did in the Philippines. Is Remy went, Remy had his family style, and he studied Balintawak and various other styles and systems. He distilled it into what became his version of modern Arnis. He brought that here. That version of modern Arnis is what we were promoting up through '84, up to '85, Tim, around that neck of the woods. But then Remy was always evolving. He saw things. He's okay. You can only do so many seminars before you don't. I don't want to say run out of material, but basically the home dojos are there for people to practice and train.
Right.
So I had students that took seminars that never trained any other style, but they came in and they wanted to learn more. So we had regular classes and we'd run over the techniques, but then basically I had to incorporate other martial arts basics in because they didn't have that. We did it from the Arnis perspective, and that's where we went that direction of creating the well-rounded martial artist, and all from the perspective of deriving it all from Arnis. Now we have a few drills and stuff like that the Korean and Kung Fu people have some helpful drills and approaches to some things that are good for training groups of people. So, incorporate that stuff. What works, it helps people learn. That's great. But it was not the evolution that it was after Wally and Remy did their thing and moving on with Tapi Tapi and so on and so forth. We had early version of Tapi Tapi. It was called Semi Sparring. And
Remy kept that going.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I guess back to the leading thing. I mean, obviously, it sounds like both are existing today. Maybe one's more prevalent, but the art within your art versus standalone. Um, I guess your guys opine on that.
Well, so first of all, I said Remy had a lot of stuff done. Like I said, he's got 3 books. Here's one. Well, actually, that's the modernized version. This was we got this book, which is done in the Philippines. This is the U.S. reprinting of that. The first book he did was The Practical Art of Eskrima.
Right.
That's the white book. Then there was the pink book in the Philippines, which also had, as we referred to them as colors.
Mm-hmm.
the pink book, which also had multiple colors. There was a green version, which was all Tagalog. The pink version was English. Then there's the yellow book, which eventually O'Hara did a colorized version where Remy is getting smashed or smashing Andy Filardo in the face. Then it was the latest interpretation, smaller version of this is the same book.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then of course he's got 27 videos and stuff of that nature. Professor in the States may not have taught stances, but in the Philippines he did. So he did have all the elements. But it was right. If your clientele already knows how to punch and kick, he wasn't going to focus on that at first, but he did have punching and kick. Like my school that I started in was the Filipino Karate Academy. John Bryant was the head instructor of that. He was a student of Don Zangi, which was the guy that brought it back to Buffalo, which was a hybrid of Kempo and Arnis, and then John did just Arnis. So Remy would come in and would do workshops where we never touched the stick, and we would do open hand, the Sinwali boxing, stuff of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and that was going to be the question, and I think he's already answered this already. But to me, I mean, like I grew up in an environment where we were taught a full system, and we made it work. And now, my question to you is, actually, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to say it. To me, what Professor did is he never taught the art within your art. He taught a system, but he may not focus on everything based on the clientele was there, which is what most people do. You see the room and you change your seminar based on who showed up. But I've never seen him do a seminar theme of, I'm going to show you how to blend this into Kempo Karate. I'm going to show you how to blend this into Jiu-Jitsu, how to blend it into X, Y, and Z. He taught his material, and like you said, in a modular type format,
Mm-hmm.
and people chose what they wanted to keep from there. Now, do you feel do you think his intent was to teach a standalone system?
His intent was to spread the art and make money. So
Understood. You know,
that was really, so he basically was adapting to what the market wanted at that time.
of course.
Let me say this. I have the definitive answer to your question,
Okay.
and it's in the art article. Towards the end, last few paragraphs, they were talking about all the comparisons and all that stuff, and they were saying, and I'll quote, but these are all just ways of saying that Arnis can be learned quickly by a student with a background in other martial arts. Emphasis comes. While Priceless likes to claim that Arnis is a complete art, and that therefore an Arnis student need only work in Arnis to become a balanced martial artist, he doesn't mind at all if a student wants to teach Arnis and apply it to the martial art that he's already proficient in. So basically, right here, he likes to claim that Arnis is a complete art, and therefore an Arnis student need only work in Arnis to become a balanced martial artist. That's the way we always approached it. It just happened that we were because our market, we were reaching out and making Arnis known.
Right. But because like in the Philippines, Remy didn't do the art within your art.
Right.
He taught the art. And I mean, I bump my heads against a whole bunch of people, and I understand why this goes down. Because everyone tells me modern Arnis is the art within your art, but I came up as a standalone system, and I made it work. And in the Philippines, it was a standalone system. And like I said, we've got 3 books, 25 videos. To me, it's not a cross-training program, although it can be done like any system. So for those who would go to a Wally J seminar, you could do it as the art within your art, adding it to what you did. Mm-hmm. Or you could actually take the program that he offered a few people and learn as a standalone program.
And as his exposure increased and as the effort matured, he went from what he had to do in the early 80s, which was teach it within, to teaching to teaching standalone. I personally agree that modern Arnis can be a standalone art. It is also, I was basically explaining to people that to me the stick is a teacher. And the teacher is, yes, it's a weapon, of course. but it's our teacher. It shows you, it teaches you things when you're not even paying attention. It teaches you range. It teaches you timing. It teaches you how to be in the right place and not to be in the wrong place. It teaches you all these things. And as the stick as a teacher, it can, I don't want to say invade, but it can permeate into any other style or any other system because that teacher applies across the boards. Modern Arnis as a system, yeah, I mean, it can, should, could, ought to be a standalone. Essentially, that's where we were going in 1984.
Oh, from the initial exposure after you got into schools,
Yeah,
his goal was to okay.
my partner was Jeff Arnold. We had 3 schools in Michigan, and we had a couple schools in California. And we basically we were both teaching Taekwondo separately before we knew Remy, and then we met up with Remy and trained with Remy, and then we were teaching modern Arnis separately. And for a long time, we were teaching those things separately. At the date of this article, we were teaching them separately. We had karate students, we had Arnis students, we had a few that did both. And we looked at this and go, this is ridiculous. Arnis has everything that we need to do. I said, hey, Remy, I said, we have students that need to be training on this stuff. Can we put together, can we combine our systems and do the whole things? And classic Remy answer is, yeah, you do that. So basically we explained to him where we were going with it and basically putting together what you're talking about as a standalone art is what we were incorporating. So that was moving that way naturally.
Who today? So, and again, I'm not saying I know that. I'm just saying by virtue of doing all these interviews and kind of drawing a conclusion without knowing for sure, how there seems to be very few that are teaching it as a standalone. Most, if I'm not mistaken, are kind of putting with the art within the art. Is that a fair assessment?
Beats me, Tim.
So the masses. Okay, so there are a handful. Okay, so my organization teaches a standalone program. When I onboard people, I obviously do the fast track, but then I backfill some things. So I it's not that I don't do an art within your art approach. I do that when I talk to people from outside the system. But when it comes to developing them as an instructor to teach, I give them all the tools to do this as a standalone system. Now, so our organization promotes modern Arnis as the arts. But if you look at, if you listen to all the interviews, you've done all the interviews. How, besides myself and Ty, that of the other, besides present company, throw Ty in there, throw Chad in there. How many people that you've interviewed, Dean, that say they've done the art as a standalone program?
Very few, but I want to also, as far as what to add, they didn't say they wouldn't or couldn't do that. So, just without knowing for sure, I certainly don't want to say these guys couldn't do it. But those who are adamantly teaching as a separate, yes, based on my interviews and based on what I know from these interviews, yes, yourself, Ty, could be a couple of others out there perhaps that
Rich Parsons, who came from the Flint group, where
he's teaching a standalone. Okay.
Yeah, and actually that's the group that Jeff Arnold, I think, developed.
Okay. So I'll see.
Jim Powers was the head instructor at one time, and then Rich took over. But there was the Flint Martial Art Group, which was part of that association, if I'm not mistaken.
Hey, just to be clear, I teach Arnis as a standalone.
So then we got. So then
there we go. There. What's that?
I realized that 40 years ago.
Yeah. Now,
and I've been teaching it that way ever since.
So here's a question, because I'm going to go back on this.
Sure.
Where did the hand forms come from? The open hand forms, because the stick forms were done in the Philippines. The Filipinos do not know the open hand años.
So we were doing a lot of tournaments back in the day.
Yeah.
I was talking about the competitions.
Mm-hmm.
And my partner, Jeff Arnold, actually was doing form competitions. And he was using Arnis sticks. And he was having... The sticks were moving so fast people couldn't see them. And he saw Cynthia Rothrock out there with her whip chain. And the whip chain has a little flag on the end. So he took his sticks and he stuck little red flags on the end so that you could do a Sinawali or a Redonda or whatever, and people could see the sticks moving.
Okay.
And he actually took some heat for doing that. People were saying, "What's that, for tourniquets or what?" But people didn't understand it. But we did that intentionally. Remy looked at it. And he went. He was watching. We did a lot of tournaments with Remy, a lot of exhibitions. But he was at a lot of tournaments, and basically he looked at this and he goes, "We need to do forms. We need to do some forms." So Jeff had put together a Anyo Kaliyahan, which is a freedom form that he used in competition. Remy saw that and he said, okay. So Remy, at my dojo in Hollywood, started working on forms. He started creating. So Anya's 1 and 2, he did on the training floor at my school in Hollywood.
That's wow, fascinating. So from there, wow.
He created them from scratch. They were not They did not come from the Philippines or whatever. I watched him decide on what moves to put in what combination.
And what years is about?
82.
Still really early on. Wow. So he made, okay.
83, maybe 82, 83-ish, right around there.
Now, did those work themselves into his seminars, etc., when he went to different schools?
Oh, later on, he started teaching the forms. I don't know, Tim, you probably know more about it than I do, because there's Anyas 1 through 5, and he did 1 and 2 on my floor at my school. But then he came back and he had 3, and then eventually he had 5.
There are 12 forms. 4 are stick and 8 are open hand.
Okay.
So I don't know where they originated from. Now, so the reason why I'm going to say this is that, like I said, professor gave me my first kicking lessons. I mean, I had self-taught myself how to kick with my friends in backyard training. I was a martial artist first and then a martial artist later.
Right.
But professor would demonstrate phenomenal kicking ability, and and I asked him a couple things, and one of the things that you just do is if you deconstruct the forms, all the elements, and that's what a lot of karate styles did. They learned kata in Japan, Okinawa, or whatever. They came back and they deconstructed the forms for all the different elements. So there was plenty of material there. You just had to do your work, and I think the problem with a lot like the era that you've been interviewing lately is they are rote learned mentality. They're used to people telling them what to do, when to do, sort of like the military type mindset, where you had to think upon yourself. I don't want to say it was like a buffet where you had to go up and pick stuff. I mean, you could with what you wanted to add to the system, but those who wanted to really excel in the system, or the ones that you've been interviewing, I think they were just so used to being spoon-fed everything, they didn't think about deconstructing things. I didn't have professor around me all the time. Like, I left John's school. I had myself, so I would see Remy monthly, but that's one day out of the entire month. So, and then eventually it was a couple times a month, but even still, I had to take all the material, bring it back home, and tear it down, rebuild it, do it left side, right side, upside down, whatever, and deconstruct the material. And I think everything's there when you look. I mean, we've got, like I said, 12 forms, 4 weapons, which were done in the Philippines. The 8 open hand forms evidently were done here, because when I've been to the Philippines and I've asked them to show the forms, and I've talked about, what about the hand forms? Like, what are you talking about?
Mike was saying that, they were here. I guess, but here's my question to both of you. Is it, let's just say newer generation, just for sake of argument, whether they were mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s, if the methodology change in the approach of delivery of this information, is it their fault or no?
Say it again.
He constantly involved in all that. With that evolution, again, coining it the newer generation, regardless of like whether it was mid 80s, early 90s when they came around. Is it their fault, though, if there was not only a change in methodology, but also what was emphasized or not, that they maybe didn't do the introspective lens, like you were saying, deconstruction and etc.?
Well, let me go first on this one. First of all, you have to look at Remy teaching a seminar like a musician going on tour.
Mm-hmm.
So as new albums come out, you can't perform your entire
Oh, right. No,
yeah.
no, absolutely.
So as Professor would go out, you have to, even though he didn't do something the next time you saw him, didn't mean the material was gone. You had to practice. And he would teach a theme through the year. He wouldn't just like, I mean, there some things that were one-offs. There's plenty of one-offs that he was experimenting with, musing based on who was in front of him in the room.
Mm.
And I've seen things that I've only seen once. So obviously that's not core curriculum. But core curriculum he did on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we didn't always do the disarms. Maybe we didn't always do the forms. Maybe we always didn't do, your police or your striking styles. But it would come back up, and people would have to train it in the meantime. Also, because of, well, okay, there were five, from about 86 on. There were 6 videos. Okay. Now, back then, considering what we made back then and what they were charging, that was expensive. But the fact of the matter here is there were 6 videos and one book that we had ready, easy access to, and that was this. Okay. Those 6 videos would cover everything you needed to know in the art for the core.
For the core.
And then as he evolved, so we would call it solo baston semi-sparring. So you'd go into single Sinwali, one stick, and do your butting. That he had been doing forever and a day. Eventually, he created a left versus right section because he was left-handed. But he had a thing called tappy-tappy, which was the Sagitas of Balintawak, where he would strike, come back, block, strike, come back, block. And then one day, he combined that with the left on right and called it all tappy-tappy. But it's not that he didn't do it. He still did the flow, which I threw the term Krasada flow because it was all gunting. But he also would say, go with the flow, which was just, going with the flow of things. But then it was, let's do the other flow, the lock flow. So he threw, so I would put extra descriptors in there because, his linguistics weren't the best. He self-taught himself English. It's not like we had Babbel or Pilser or any of those other things out there at the time. And a lot of times he preferred to use English over Filipino terms. There's a key, it was 6-count drill, commonly referred to as sombrada. We do the flow drill, which is a gunting drill. And you can continue to go on with stuff of that nature. So I personally, I think people didn't commit. They liked doing it as a secondary or tertiary. They did it as an enrichment program. The art within your art, in my opinion, was a cross certification course for those who didn't want to go all in, and which means your primary art still counted for some of that because it's the art within your art. And let's talk logic. If you're doing the art within your art, you're not doing what Remy did. You're taking bits and pieces
Mm-hmm.
of what Remy did and adding it to your base. So
Particularly what your instructor. I mean, wherever school you're at, you might not have a choice. If you're a student, you know what I mean?
That's exactly what Remy promoted in those early years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to get the art, I'm sure.
Take it and put it into what you do. Now, I would agree with you, Tim, about the core curriculum. One thing that I think is lost for some people is that our niece is very individual. You have to modify what you do based on so many different factors. So you can have the core curriculum and core skill sets. I used to do, Santendencia was a great example. He would do it, have disarm, have somebody feed me an incoming, and he'd do a disarm. And then I'd say, okay, now you do it. And he had the other guy, and the guy would do it. And the guy would do it not the same way. And he'd say, no, do it like this. And then the guy would try to do it, and he would mess it up. And then somebody else would come in and because basically the technique that he did was so instinctive, his response, that if the guy was a little slower, a little faster, a little taller, a little shorter, he would automatically adapt what he did. And he'd wind up doing a completely different technique, depending on which person was throwing that incoming stick. And so the people do want a core. They want a strict curriculum. They want an aid. Maybe they don't want to think or understand. It's a part of a learning process is to understand and duplicate and get the concept, get the drills. But ultimately, when you make it your own, you adapt. That is the real flow. The real flow is being able to adapt to whatever it is. I'm expecting to come in and block a certain way. Somebody hits slightly differently. I therefore have to change what I'm doing. So that variable of that necessity of adaptive flow is so strong in our niece
Mhm.
that for a lot of people they have trouble bridging the gap between the rigid structure and the real flow. And I've observed that just over and over and over again.
I think there's a disconnect with people. I'm not saying this conversation, but people in general. There's a difference between system and style,
Yes.
and people are sloppy with language, and they just don't understand. And a lot of times they don't understand or don't ask questions. System is the methodology, the formulas to learn our system, and I think Remy's formulas have been consistent. Block, check, counter, trapping hands, decadena, disarms, disarm reversals, striking styles. That was consistent throughout his life. Style is your personal interpretation of things, your swagger.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, or if we say go to a karate school, some people may be more striker or more kickers, others people may be more hands. Some people might prefer the weapons over the weapon katas over or some people might be fighters, where other people are kata practitioners, and that's the personal individuality inside of a martial system. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time, I mean, but the basic thing is we have a codified system and methodology to get us there, and
Mm-hmm.
we had a black belt test. I know this has been a big argument, and you've been part of that. I mean, you've had to witness in the argument. Um, you know, People would say, "Well, Anderson would make the comment of all we had was a grocery list." You had a list. Here's a list of what's a technique. Well, I mean, what's curriculum? Here's a list of material you need to know. Hey, Joe.
Pretty
Um,
in pink.
it. I mean, when you do kata, if I did a Shinryu karate, which Buffalo is a big town, there was a list of katas you need to know. There was a list of you had to do the upper and lower body exercises. There was 30 between the two. You had your predetermined self defense sets. It's a shopping list. I mean, I don't see what the big problem is now. And each school would have a tendency of developing their own belted curriculum, belt to belt. So
Mm-hmm.
I just, did we have a predetermined belted curriculum? I did because John Bryant did, and Remy was a partner in the school for John Bryant. I don't know where John got it from, and I'm not. But John was committed to doing the system as a standalone school. Now, most cross training schools or the art within yards, they wouldn't have that, but they still would know they have access to that black belt test. So then you have all the material you need to know, and however you want to do it, linear program, modular program, rotating curriculum. You'd have. Remy didn't care how we got the job done. He just wanted us to do the art. And we once again, you got to do your own work. I'm ranting. I'm sorry.
No, I'm with you. I don't disagree with you. At the first training camp, summer training camp in '83 in West Virginia, that was the question: are we giving people ranking? What do they have to know? So I sat with Remy. I made a list, and I made a shopping list exactly what you just said of all the stuff that they were going to train, all the stuff they had to show competency at.
Well, there you go.
And that's to get their certificate at the end of the camp. We had a test. Everybody demonstrated all the techniques, some better than others, but bottom line is they did. So yeah, I mean that's a measure for like you said, it's a shopping list of what you're going to be doing.
Do you have that list still? I'm just curious.
I have an old dot matrix printout or two of it. Yeah.
No. I think it's great that you had that in that camp. You introduced that. So when you say there was testing, the testing you referenced, was that for their black belt or was that for any level pending?
I don't remember. We had 2 week sessions. We had 2 weeks of sessions. We had some people that came for just 1 week and some people that came
I
for
remember you
both.
saying that. Right.
And there was a basic instructor certificate that if you did 1 week you got. There was a other instructor certificate. I don't remember what it was
You were
labeled
2 weeks.
for the 2 weekers.
It
And
wasn't really based on belts then, or was it?
that was not based on belts. That was based on a certificate of proficiency,
Gotcha.
so to speak.
Okay.
I mean, when professor would do once again, when we did belted, when he issued belts, it was based on how well you moved. It wasn't about
Correct.
and it was, and it wasn't even necessarily the quantity of answers. Is how you asked the question. Depending on how good I asked that question, I may have only answered 5 questions, but those 5 questions may have been huge questions. And
Your answers.
if your fundamentals are on point, and then your secondary and tertiary material isn't, I don't think it'd be too care too much. I mean, Trappy hands. If you do the Decadita back and forth, he was happy with that. The Sinwalis. Maybe you weren't all that great with Sinwalis, but your disarms were on point. And a lot had to do with how well you did different things. And
so, when did he transition from the certificates, regardless of the level of instructorship, whether it was apprentice or whatever? When did he fully go to belts?
Oh, he did both. Well, no, I'm sorry. He never got rid of the certificates.
So there's some that are black belts and on top of whatever instructor he gave them?
I went to the Mississippi summer camp. I was a blue belt at the time. I came out of that camp as a green because it went blue to green. I think I came out as a second green. Hold on. Tim speaking.
How about you, Mike? Was there so Mike, were you graduating with certificates and belts?
We did not have belts.
There were no belts, so that's something that was incorporated.
The only belt was when Ramey worked with us all, so he knew how we moved and he knew how our abilities were. So my first black belt came out after a seminar, but I didn't test for it. He awarded it to me after working at the workshop. And so basically, I didn't have any lower ranks of belts.
So one day he just because there were no
We had worked together a lot, and it was time for me. He said, "Michael, here's your belt." So he pulled out the certificate and signed it, and we filled in the blanks, and that was. He said, "Remy, what do we call this?" He thought about it for a minute. Now he must have had this already in his mind, but he says, "I said, we call this first degree, or what are we calling this?" He says, "Kala lakan, lakanisa." And I said, "Okay, what's lakan?" He says, "It means gentleman." Okay, equivalent of a black belt. So my first couple black belts were that's how it was. Now the second at the training camp, I got my second with him, and there was some testing just to make it look like we were supposed to. But he decided we didn't have any colored belts. But that was a different era. We were not running through a standalone system at that time. The only thing that really mattered to people at that point is if they were an instructor or a qualified instructor or a black belt of some.
So he wasn't given the intermediate, like whether it was yellow, orange, blue.
At that time, no.
Got it. That came later. Okay.
So sorry about that. FedEx we've been having problems with shipments coming in. So I was at Yellow. I tested. My first test was for Remy here in Buffalo at the end of the seminar with all the black belts in the area, which really frustrated the hell out of me. I got my yellow belt. I tested for my.
What year was that? What year?
That was 1985.
Oh, makes sense. Okay, so it was after a little. Okay,
yeah.
All right.
And then I went to the Mississippi summer camp in '86, and I got my blue belt, my second blue. Now it went white, yellow, first, second blue, first, second green. End up being 4 browns because of a typo and 11 black belts because of a typo. Long story. I was only getting a second blue, but I got a basic instructor diploma because I outperformed the black belts in attendance. The black belts were not black belts in arnis. They were black belts in karate.
So your basic black belt, you got the blue belt. In conjunction with the blue belt, you got a basic instructor.
Yes. So basically, the basic instructor diploma, okay, at the end of the day, it's all about the belt, not the certificate. The certificate basically is your umbrella. It was an apprenticeship program. It was just to give you because most of the people who went home with one of those diplomas were black belts in other systems. So say now I can offer an Arnis class because I have a
Because you're a
basic.
blue belt and you got this, so you can teach up to blue belt
Well,
material.
no.
No.
No. I got my blue belt.
Got it.
I was only a yellow belt. I got a blue belt. Then there's other people around me who tested for whatever belt. I got a higher instructor certificate than many of the black belts that were in attendance because I outperformed them. The instructor diploma was subjective to basically how you performed, what Remy thought.
So that had no bearing on what
No.
you're allowed
Rank,
to teach or anything.
rank and instructor's diplomas are two different things.
Right.
Which is more rank?
Got it.
But the thing was, I became an instructor because I outperformed black belts from other systems doing Remy's material, which makes sense because I was in a full-time Arnie school and they were just learning.
You're doing right. So it sounds like around 85 or so belts became the norm, give or take. I mean, not that you need to know exactly.
So Don Zangi went to the first camp. You probably would have met Don Zangi there. And then he came back to Buffalo, and he had the Fighting Back Institute. It was Arnis and Kempo put together. There was a belted system there when John, and that was in that program when John came over and opened up the Filipino Karate Academy. I think he did that late '84. So there was belts in '84. Now where did they originate? If it was somebody else's idea, and then all of a sudden Remy finally said, "Yeah, let's do it." I don't know.
I'm basic. I mean, the schools he went in, they use belts. I mean, I'm just guessing it makes sense that
colored belts. So if we go back, in the pink book, there is the belting system.
Yeah, the pink book had, I think it was it white, blue, brown?
It was like, I'm looking for it right now, but it was the 9 Qs basically of, or like 6 Qs, 6 white belts, then 3 browns, and then the blacks.
Yeah.
So just what happened is someone colored them in, which is no big deal. It's still the same level.
Oh, so they went from 6 white to yellow, whatever.
So the belting system existed before it got to the States. Whether or not Remy chose to use it or not is another story. But he was okay. Yeah, their rates.
And what year did that book come out again?
Well, this I don't know. This was in the Philippines. This is the American reprint.
So it was originally produced.
It was in the 70s.
It was in the 70s, yeah.
So you obviously had belts over there.
Remy moved here in first Philippines edition, 1974.
So you obviously had belts over there.
So, he was promoting people in black. Okay, remember. Okay, Filipino martial arts were on the verge of extinction, and Remy said, "What? Okay, Shoto karate after World War II was more popular."
No, I know.
Which makes no sense. So we said, "What do they have?"
Yeah, exactly.
We don't. Yeah. Uniform. So he created a uniform: white top, red pants. Okay, they do katas. He did the stick forms. Belt system. So he created the belt system.
Yeah.
He did everything they did. And then the other thing he did was because, and I believe that we did our Blintwalk camp, so we talked about this weekend. One of the things he did, why is it? It's a modern teaching approach. He went from stick on hand to stick on stick. Now in Blintwalk, because of that close range, it forces a lot of stick on stick contacts. And I think Remy saw that and go, hey, I'm going to do that all the time so people can train safe and they don't have to get banged up. Because my Manang Ted would talk about people getting hit all the time and couldn't work for weeks at a time doing Blintwalk when they did some of the specialty moves. And, now you can practice safer. If I can hit the stick, I can hit the hand. So why hit the hand all the time? That's just a targeting thing. So one of the biggest things he did is he went from stick on flesh to stick on stick, modernized that teaching approach, and it blew up.
So you might.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's fascinating. I think you're both. I think this is one of the best because I'm actually getting some real history here, some definitive answers in history, like the evolution, the belts,
Well, I'll tell you why. You got two people who are dedicated to the art, not cross training. And listen. Here's the thing with the art within your arters. They did something else first. They are a great example of if you had a baseline, like let's say someone did karate and they did the karate Arnis fusion, you could see them how much of a difference and improvement they made. They're a phenomenal example of what the art can do for you, but they're not a good example of the art because now it's a blend and you can't see what maybe what trapping hands. Like Richard Roy was a great guy, did a lot of work hosting camps in the Northeast for Remy, but people reached out to me to do seminars in that region because Richard would try to blend as much Tai Chi into everything as possible because that was his specialty. That's not what Remy taught. People wanted what Remy taught, not his hybrid program.
So okay, but this leads to the question, and not that I need to defend all this, but in their defense, could it be based on who they were learning from? Maybe they didn't have a choice to do the art. I mean, do as a standalone. You know what I mean? Depending on who you're under at that time. Like, who was your first exposure to Marinese? And that teacher didn't really push learning the art, by itself, a standalone. You can't really fault them, can you? I mean,
I'll let you go first.
I mean, you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know until you're exposed, right?
Well, see, here's the thing: style, system, Tim, all well explained.
Thank you.
What really happens when I first trained in martial arts, cross training, going to another dojo, another school would get you kicked out.
Yeah.
It was very, very parochial, very closed-minded. You did not cross-train. You did not do something else. You didn't go to a boxing gym if you were doing karate. You didn't go to whatever system. You pledged allegiance to that system, and there you lied. Okay. Many students would try to cross-train. The instructors would throw them out. So there's a lot of evolution that's happened since those days, and really, I mean, modern is very simple. There are principles and drills in modern Arnis that will translate to any style, any system, anywhere, and take those, learn from them, use them, bless them. That's great. There's no question. Is it a standalone system? Yes, it's a standalone system, but it's also so flexible that it can play with anybody.
So by its own
by its own flow.
Yes,
it is a standalone system, but it's totally flexible. So if somebody chooses to teach their ABC karate and Tai Chi and do Arnis as well, it fits right in. It's
dual-headed. Yeah. So really, depending on. No, I understand what you're saying. I do.
Well, and actually, though, let's think about this, Dean. All Filipino martial arts could do that.
Oh yeah, I could take KI.
So it's just that this guy ended up doing a brilliant article, and a lot of people read into it more than maybe it was.
It wasn't brilliant. Actually, I think it was incredibly brilliant what you did, Mike, and the phrase. I think.
But unfortunately, I think people.
Yeah, people are.
Now, I'm going to answer your question here. Is it their fault? And my answer is going to be yes. Dan Anderson owned his own school. Okay. Kenny Smith owned his own school. Chuck Goss was not training underneath anyone. He was solely with Remy. Same thing with Jeff Delaney. Richard Roy, who I mentioned, he was the head instructor. Brian Zolensky, he took over for Steve Foley Lowry. Once again, he didn't have anyone above them. So when you're talking Bruce Chu didn't have anyone above them. They made a choice. So I'm not saying that was the right that wasn't the right choice for them
based on their needs and who their audience was.
Not saying that at all.
Yeah.
But okay. So of those names, Dan and Kenny are the only two in the same boat as me as professional martial artists. Chuck Goss was a Detroit cop. Jeff Delaney worked air conditioning units or solar power units for high-end corporations in Texas. Brian Zobolinski was a correctional officer. Okay, I can go down. Bruce Chu was in law enforcement one time. Actually, martial arts has never been his primary profession. He's always done something else. So it's not like I'm a high-ranking guy in ITF Taekwondo. But even said, if I'm a high-ranking guy in Taekwondo, I can take my school tomorrow and go, we're now Arnis. Or, tomorrow I can turn this into a Sikuran school, a Kuntao school, a Jiu-Jitsu school, a karate school, a karate school. I have that choice as the owner. I can transition people and the curriculum over.
Right, and fit the curriculum where it needs to.
And eventually I can just make it to a whole full-time. With the forms, the open hand forms, it has the freedom, and you can sit there and say, I'm not going to do the katas. I'll do my karate katas because they're better structured. Got it. Okay. That's an easy compromise. All right. But you could do the rest of the system, so that's a choice, what I mean? And I'm not, and I'm not faulting for them for their choice, but when you make a choice like that, you have to also realize that if you're going to teach a blended program, when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, when I'm doing my kuntao, when I'm doing my sikuran, I tell people I can teach it, I can tell you, I can coach it, but I am not the best representation of those programs because I didn't commit to those programs as a full-time martial artist. But having 40 plus years in the martial art industry, I've got good eyes. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I can coach a lot of people to do well in what we're doing. But the thing here is that I'm still going to always think of things from a modern point of view.
No, I got you. So, what's your opinion on this, Mike?
Well, honestly, I don't see a big conflict.
Yeah, maybe there should be one.
I don't see a conflict.
What good would it do, right?
I teach my system standalone. The stick is the teacher. It is Arnis. It's derived from what I learned from Remy, plus 40 years of experience on top of that. If somebody else wants to use parts of it or teach Tai Chi or Wun Hap Kuen Do along with their Arnis, either as separate classes or if they want to merge them, I mean, it's like I said earlier, it's a standalone art, but it is so flexible and so fundamentally basic that it can go anywhere.
Yeah,
and that's I watched Professor so many times with so many different martial arts and so many different styles, and he could just flummox them because he knew, and that shows to me that every style has a style is a style. It's an interpretation. It's a personal interpretation. Mm-hmm. I like ballet. I like hip hop. Oh, I like country square dancing. It's all dancing. You don't try to do ballet at a square dance. It's not going to work.
I would. Yeah, no, good analogy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, here's because but okay, where do you, as far as the future goes, like what would you guys, I guess, like to see? In other words, I guess the optimal situation would be where people could collectively work together, regardless of what their lens is within under the umbrella of Marnice, whether they're doing standalone, whether they're doing whatever they're integrating it with, or art within the art. What would you guys like to see? Mike, what would you like to see?
Well, I would like to see people just working the arts. It's hard to explain. Within the Filipino culture, it's so disparate that it's very difficult to get everybody on the same page. It would be really nice. It'd be really nice.
I had no idea of that FMA discussion. I don't know what you're talking about.
No idea about that. Exactly. And I think the benefits are fantastic. I would like to see the exploration and proliferation and prosperity of all the FMA martial arts without the conflict. You have sport, you have self-defense, you have survival. Those are three entirely different things. And people need to choose the art that resonates with them depending upon what they want to be doing. I do it for the sport. I'm not competing in tournaments. I do it because it's an art and I enjoy it.
Right.
I'm not doing it for warfare. I'm not doing it, and self-defense is a whole different can of worms. That's an entirely different conversation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, agreed.
But having said that, people need to select the martial art that appeals to their style, to their body makeup. I'm 6 feet tall and long legs, as somebody else that's 5'6" and wide as a refrigerator is going to have a different approach to what they need and what they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
So basically, you adapt it. You find what you need. You find the style that suits you. You find the approach that you like. And for me, I was lucky that I found Ramy in the stick. I will also say lucky. I'm 71 years old and I'm mobile. I'm not broken. Some of my dear friends were crippled.
What, you're 71?
Yes.
I would have never guessed. You look great for your age.
Well, thank you. But a lot of my friends had, their hands are crippled. They can't move. They can't walk from overtraining. Yeah, the whole thing. And it's, our niece spared me from that. Now I got a few knuckles, that got wrapped a few times.
Yeah, but nothing. But yeah.
But not the hard training of, I have to make my hand into a hammer in order to knock somebody off a horse.
Yes.
No, I'll take something else and hit him off the stick with a stick or something. Doesn't have to make my hand into that weapon. So there's a lot of culture. There's a lot of things. But if people could just get along and enjoy and grant the other people their opinions.
Their opinion is what makes them happy, right? Who the hell are we to tell people what they should be doing in their journey?
Exactly, and I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share with anybody that's willing to share.
Yeah. That's a big thing, man. It's a student's journey.
Leave the attitude at home, Yeah. So it's simple.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you.
Yeah, the good thing is a lot of people come to us who want to stay in the arts, who are broken, and then keep training.
Oh yeah.
That's good too.
Well, that's a familiar thing because you can adapt and you can make things so that people can work. Which is satisfying as a teacher. As a teacher, I want to help people. I want to see people grow. I want them to become as good as they can get, but I also want to see them be able to participate.
Yeah, right.
And again, everybody has their own reason. Is it sport and art? Is it self-defense? Is it survival, warfare? What is it? So it's going to be different for different people. But we all have, most of us have bilateral symmetry. You got 2 arms and 2 legs. Biomechanics are pretty standard. Joints bend a certain way. How you choose to bend them? Well, there you go.
There you go. So because Tim, you gotta leave at 5, right?
I got a minute. So my thing here is it's real simple. I think we could all work together. I think my biggest thing here is because there's resistance from the art within your art side that people can do this as a standalone art. And I understand that in some cases that may undermine their situation. People who are claiming to be the leaders of what Professor did, what they're doing is a cross training versus the primary system. So I get that. I personally embrace both sides. I'm looking for the people who are dedicated to the art to train for the next generation to carry art forward. Mm-hmm. But I understand that the cross trainers, the art within your arters, the tourists, they pay the bills so I can get my message out to the right people and find that next generation. My camp, we just did a camp in May. My measurement was success after I thought about it afterwards, because I didn't have time to prep for it, was that I had 4 generations of black belts on the floor.
It's great.
And in modern, and the thing here is, a lot of times, a lot of people have come and gone, but those people help. There's a lot of people that I saw that would come in, do a couple seminars with a professor, and then leave. You know what? I was thankful for them to show up because they paid the seminar bills.
Yeah.
So I got access to see him. I don't care if anyone, if it was within driving range and I got to go there. If someone just had Remy in for a one-off, I showed up. I was happy because it was one less seminar that I had to host. So I definitely embrace the art within your art, but I think that both sides need to accept each other. And right now, I don't think it's reciprocal. It's just, I think it's kind of
Well,
one-sided.
hopefully that can change. I mean, hopefully, having bringing you guys on and speaking on this, maybe this will bring some positive. I mean, we can only hope, right?
We can always hope.
You know,
Well, I again, our niece is so flexible; it bridges the gap.
Yeah.
And there is no reason for a conflict other than logically there's no reason for a conflict. I have a saying, my kids they're sick of hearing it, but it's real simple. Emotions turn off logic.
yes.
And to the degree that somebody is emotionally vested in something, the logic is not working.
That's true.
And so when I hear something like this, that there's a conflict, art within your art, standalone. No, it's simple. It's standalone. You can incorporate it. You can have it as a parallel class. You can incorporate it with what you do. No. So there's an emotional issue here that's not necessarily being addressed. It's not an issue of logic, because logically it's Filipino martial arts.
Yeah. Can't argue that. Emotional gets in the way sometimes. Subjectivity, kind of keep things objective. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Hey, I appreciate both of you. I thought this was an excellent conversation from both of your parts.
Glad to kick in what I can share.
Yeah, salute you both. I thought you guys did a great job. Yeah, as always, download, send it to you guys, and you guys can share, do it, whatever you may.
Well, I already shared this on my pages, so.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm assuming that some of these guys who are commenting are from my feed. And we got a bunch of comments, so that's good.
Yeah. It seemed people enjoyed it for sure. We kept it civil and kept it non-political.
Yeah.
So
it's all about keeping the art moving.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
And
I got to thank Mike. Thanks for writing the article in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that article was a game changer. I don't care the result of the article as far as this little minor division of art versus art within. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because of that article, I got to hang with Remy for 16 years, and it changed my life.
Absolutely.
In the direction, and you're part of that change. So once again, thank you, my friend.
Thank you. My pleasure. It was great to talk to both you guys.
Yeah, awesome. And one last question. Did you think you would have that when you originally came up with that phrase, that article, did you think it would have the magnitude that it has today? I mean,
no.
As far as, no, I know. Okay.
No, no. I knew it was. I was proud of myself at the time because it sounded good, and I thought, oh, this is great. This is a good link and a good article, and this will get us some seminars booked.
Yeah. Nothing to the magnitude of influence, though, you thought would have.
Well, not the extent, the influence, nor the conflict. I'm really quite surprised, to be honest with you.
Yeah, 41 years later, and here we are.
Yeah, when I heard there was even any issue about it, I went, wow, it's just a tagline, guys. Come on.
Oh, well, hopefully people see this, they'll watch it. Maybe this could mend some bridges. And who knows?
Well, I hope so. Randy was very good at sharing, but he also shared selectively. So it's important for everybody just to get together and be communicative and share whatever piece of Remy that they have.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks again. You guys take care.
Okay. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Get you out of here. Okay. Awesome. And that wraps up 516. That was a good conversation. I thought so. Hopefully something positive will come out of it. Hopefully folks can put some of these issues aside and just start working together. Wouldn't that be best for the community and the arts? I think so. Who is next on FMA discussion? Datu Kelly just got to. He's got his water and steel camp. Yeah, hope that's correct. And I believe it's his last year. This is the last year he's doing it. 45 years, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely gonna bring him on, but it probably won't be till next week. And there. So as always, stay tuned. They'll be posting everything in the discussion. You guys will be the first ones to see it when it's going to happen. But I believe Datu Kelly is going to be the next one. All right, folks. Thanks for watching and chiming in, and we'll see you next time.